Hello, everybody. Welcome to another geopolitical analysis video. I thought I'd change up the format. Today, we're doing a bit of a freestyle. It's been almost 3 weeks since I did a video for this channel. Obviously, it's not my um, only venture, the only thing I do, but of course, this is. I love catching up with world events and taking up just different topics that are um, are often complicated and often have different layers. Right? It's like an onion. The more you peel the onion, you find that more things come to a center, to a common denominator. Speaking of common denominators, I want to dive into the first topic I want to dive into is Middle East. I know I have a lot of people from that region that follow this channel, sometimes message me on Twitter. And I know that right now what's going on with the Kurds is huge. Although here in North America, we don't really hear about this, but this is definitely a huge front that is opening after Ukraine. Um, so what's going on with the Kurds? What's going on with this revolution of the Kurdish people? And why is it that we don't get a lot of exposure to the strife and the wars that are happening against the Kurds? I mean, they're striving for independence. Now, the Kurdish people, quick history context there, are ancient people. They've been around for a very long time. Some people think that they have genetic ancestry with the Hittites. The Greeks obviously were in that region, so some mixing may have occurred for sure. We know that a lot of the Kurdish traditions follow ancient Greek, Anatolian traditions, and there are a lot of philosophers who recorded their cultural rituals and proceedings, and in their lifestyle in general, in general was very influenced by the Greek forces there, because Greeks, of course, were parts of Turkey, where Turkey is now, and there was a lot of exchange of culture. Alexander the Great also interfered with them, and they stood up and stood against Alexander's embarking to more of the Indo parts of Asia, the more deeper parts of Asia, close to the Orient. So they were the first line of defense, if you will, because again, Alexander the Great went to conquer back lands that were enslaved by the Persian presence, and of course the Kurds were in different regions. They were more nomadic. They never really had a unity against, and we see this historically, that the Kurds have spread around geographically very thin. Syria, Iraq, Iran, Azerbaijan too, Turkey, of course. And one thing that demographically, when you hear Turkey is expanding, it's not that the actual Turks are expanding, but the Kurdish people. They're very, very, they're known to be warrior-like, very patriotic. And of course, Öcalan, who was their leader, went in Greece for asylum, and somehow the Americans forced the Greek officials to release him to Turkey. Anyways, moving on, Sweden as well has given and it's amazing to see how Sweden is given in to the Turkish pressure. They are extraditing this Kurdish who fled from the government of Erdogan, was criticizing the Erdogan government. And of course, they're trying to make the Kurdish people look like they're a bunch of terrorists, which is further than the truth. They're just fighting for their own independence. Turkey has economically really stifled that region in Turkey where there are a lot of Kurds purposely, right? So anyways, They're fighting for their freedom. That's a common denominator. Going back to my initial comment there, they're the common denominator. Maps will change. Mark my words, that region will change, and Kurdistan might be forming, which is going to be huge. Which is going to be huge. So, second point I want to mention today is that the war in Ukraine wages on. There's a lot of propaganda from both sides, but like we said 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, we predicted that this would be a war that will take a very long time to mature, and it will be an ultimate war on wear and tear tactics. Wear and tear in the military tactics is a strategy essentially to wear your opponent by having the opposite of blitzkrieg, having different waves of attack, and of course draining the resources of the country. We've seen that the country for many months now is battling through the energy grid is falls many times and collapses, and a lot of people are without electricity. So yeah, unfortunate things, but let's continue. Let's see what else is going on in the world. Very interesting development with the COVID vaccines. We're seeing that a lot of parts of the world are taking a step back against this totalitarian approach that China first took. Let's not forget the COVID zero policy was a Chinese invention, very totalitarian, and of course the rest of the world followed suit because they were afraid, but also because there was interest. There was a lot of incentive there, monetary incentive. Pardon me, guys, but the throat's getting dry. So lots of incentives there, but we see overall what COVID taught us, reminded us perhaps, because people go through phase of amnesia, right? We've had the bird flu, we've had all these pandemics. And again, this goes back to a very interesting topic called gain of function research, which is about manipulating genomes or organisms in order to come up with therapeutic benefits and to manipulate genes for good. Of course, that exists. Science has made amazing, over the last 100 years, amazing developments and such a breakthrough so we can better understand this complex system that we learn each day more things about, right? But when it comes to bioethics, a lot of things and constitutional, rights, a lot of boundaries were breached. And unfortunately, we're seeing now the ramifications. This channel was not supportive of these mandatory policies. And of course, the mandatory vaccination thing is huge. Some of us who like ancient philosophy, Hippocrates, in his oath, describes the importance of having voluntary therapy. But unfortunately, we see different industries being hijacked again and again and again. And people fall prey because we get brainwashed. And unfortunately, when people do not cultivate critical thinking, when they do not give some room for the opposite opinions and opposite facts to come in that oppose a narrative that is publicly syndicated, then unfortunately you have these issues. So it's a very interesting show recently. Jordan Peterson with a scientist talk about the mRNA vaccines and the ramifications of these policies, et cetera, et cetera. So Russia pissed off at US as they're saying that the US and NATO are directly participating in the Ukrainian war. And absolutely they are. They were training the Ukrainian troops for a very long time. And Russia, again, very naive to think that it was going to be a walk in the park. Of course, they never made big claims, but they acted as if this was a walk in the park. Of course, Russia's not fighting Ukraine. They're fighting NATO in this situation because Ukraine is the proxy of the US. Just look back. This war didn't just start now, but since 2014. Anyways, those of you who are familiar with Alex Jones, he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Of course, he had to pay 1 point something billion for the things for the Sandy Hook debacle. But I've been following Alex Jones for many, many years. He was one of the presenters that I looked up to in the beginning because of his enthusiasm, his passion, but also his ability to reach, to present topics that you don't hear anywhere else. So, of course, he was getting tipped by a lot of insiders, a lot of whistleblowers, but a lot of bad actors who came in the space to ruin him. And he fell prey for that. When you don't do your own research, guys, time and time again, if you don't do your own research from opposite sources and cross reference and try to see things from a macro perspective, you can fall into many traps. And unfortunately, we all come to a point in our lives where we fall into that, right? Um, yeah, global recession imminent, no surprise there, and of course, a very controversial topic, but European data is showing clear link between immigration and crime. Of course, there's a lot of information here that has been taken up since 2019. Yeah, Europe has been breached. I'm all about multiculturalism, but when you bring in people who were raised in corrupt countries and in poor countries, unfortunately, they bring with them a lot of bad habits. But it's not just that; it's also that certain cultures just don't mix. Why should the West impose their own culture, right? The East, everybody should have their own culture. We shouldn't. We should have some clear lines there. Um, but yeah, lots of interesting news, guys. We're gonna do this again. I just want to do a quick test to see how this will be for a lot of you. Please comment below any topics. I have 20, 30 different topics I look at throughout the span of the week, and lots of interesting developments around the world. Lots of positive news in some areas, but overall, we're entering into a contracting economy globally. Growth is going to slow down. So uh, just be prepared. This is not the infinite money printing times that we experienced for decades. So things are going to slow down. But thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment below, and share the video so we get more followers, and also just give a little bit more support to the channel. Thanks so much. Bye for now.